That's so brilliant! This video is sponsored by Case Filters. Learning photography is not difficult actually, it just takes a while, usually at least, to bring it to a master level. But as artificial intelligence, AI, got that good meanwhile, it seems to open us totally new doors of learning. So the question is it possible to learn photography by using artificial intelligence, and is it possible to bring it even to a master level by using an AI? I have tested an AI for finding out exactly that. And I have to say, as a photographer with more than 30 years of experience, I was quite surprised about the result, which is revealed in this video. Hi my friends, very nice to see you. You know, I started with photography when I was 12, and this was in 1990, so this is definitely a while ago. What you might not know is that this was exactly that time where I also started with programming computer programs, some years before even. And today I'm a landscape photographer, but I also have a company where I offer software solutions, programming algorithms, more complex databases and all that boring programming stuff. I developed some AIs for computer games as well as for chess simulation, backgammon and things like that. That's not comparable to high-end AI of today, of course. I don't see myself as an expert for AIs of today, but let's say I have an affinity for artificial intelligence. So you can imagine what's happening right now with the development of artificial intelligence is really fascinating me. And as many people at the moment tend to think that AIs are going to overtake the internet and YouTube even, I thought it's important maybe to make this video here to show up with strengths I see in artificial intelligence, but also which weaknesses when we want to learn photography with using an AI. So the question is also, how will the future look? Is there still a place for YouTube channels like this here, where I teach you how to get better photos? Is there still a place for photographers who offer workshops as well? Or do we all get replaced by robots in future? And what I did is I engaged a bit deeper with Chat GPT. This is an AI engine from OpenAI. I will link you everything you need down in the description, of course, so that you can check out everything by yourself. But I would say let's dive in, let's find out how we can use artificial intelligence to our advantage to get better photographers. First of all, I would even say, let's go back to the roots. Let's imagine we would be non-photographers. We would have never heard anything about photography. So in this case, let's say I want to know how to learn photography. Now let's ask that to our AI, Chat GPT. Tell me how to learn photography. Please. Always be friendly to an AI. You know, whenever they should overtake the world, you have better chances to survive. Let's press the enter button. Yeah, it takes a while to get an answer, and I have to say, on the first sight, I'm really impressed by the answer. We get a list of suggestions, and this is really every single one makes sense actually. There's nothing included that would hurt or that would get into the totally wrong direction or so. So it seems to be useful. Let's just quickly have a look. First of all, ChatGPT suggests us to learn how to use a camera, and we have to engage with the exposure triangle. I mean, that's okay, but what I'm totally missing here is the motivation for people who want to start with their phone only. Actually, you don't need an expensive camera for learning photography. You just need a camera to learn how to use a camera. But that's not photography, that's just the technical part of it, what's even a quite small one I have to say. In reality, photography is much more than that. And it also suggests to engage with other things, composition for instance. That's definitely one of the most important things in photography. But here it suggests us to engage with rules like the rule of thirds. I don't use the rule of thirds anymore though, because it limits me too much in my possibilities, but I think that's anyway a good kind of carrying weights for the beginning. It's a good way to start with photography, because by using rules like that, you don't have to think all too much, and you will anyway get better results in short time. And that motivates to learn more finally. Instead of rules, I'm convinced that it is better to engage with compositional architecture to get really great photos, but not in the very beginning. So this suggestion of Chat GPT is okay here. It also suggests to practice what's good, and also to take as many photos as possible. Maybe in the very beginning. As soon as you engage with composition, it is better to take less photos instead and trying to get every single one better. Otherwise you will just get masses of photos which are not thought to the end. With taking as many photos as possible, you will improve in the very beginning too, but your improvement will stagnate when you don't start to think really deeply into your compositions or light or storytelling, whatever. We want to get away from taking snapshots. That's something that is totally missing here in the suggestions of ChatGPT. And what I think is, ChatGPT is not really able to think. It is just a really good algorithm which is able to handle a user question as a search query and to filter all the input it got before to generate an output. And so you will not get the best possible answer, you will just get the average of all the input. And many online tutorials really suggest to take as many photos as possible, but it is actually not meant like that. It is meant more like engage as often as possible with photography and take photos where you really think deeply into every single one. Yeah, I mean, of course, the more photos you take where you really think deep into each single one, the better it is. But that's not possible when you take 50 photos a day. It's better to focus on just 2 or 3 a day or something like that and thinking deeply into that. This is more how it makes sense. But anyway, most photographers suggest to take as many photos as possible and mean actually, more in the context of thinking deep into them. Humans might understand how it is meant, and artificial intelligence doesn't. It doesn't understand anything actually. It just averages all the input. I think when an AI stumbles over one of my videos where I suggest to take less photos to get better and where I also explain why so that it gets really plausible, it would maybe even handle it as a kind of anomaly or something like that, because I'm the only one who gives the dip against the others from the perspective of the AI. So I fear we don't get the best possible advice by an AI, we get more average advice. And the average is far away from good. Just think about discussion forums. How many people are giving advice there although they have never held a camera in their hands, or maybe just over the weekend or so? And artificial intelligence doesn't make a difference between that and the suggestions of an experienced photographer. It just looks at misses. What does the miss suggest? And at this point, I see already a problem with the quality of AI suggestions, to be honest. But let's have a look at the other suggestions. And I have to say, all the other ones are quite okay actually. It suggests discussing our images with more experienced photographers, to take part on workshops and masterclasses, and that we never should stop learning. That's all okay, although I don't think that workshops and classes are essential. YouTube offers us amazing possibilities to learn photography. Workshops are good for those who want to even go one step further, or who want to save time to get high quality in quite short time, or if you want to get your photography to art, or if you want to get supported in finding compositions or in finding your own style or anything like that. But it isn't essential for learning photography. I would not give that as a basic tip. There are other more important tips a beginner should get, I think. And another thing is, I'm missing the depth in all the suggestions. It just scratches on the surface. It suggests engaging with the exposure triangle, for instance, but it doesn't explain more about that. Although this would be one of the most important things when it comes down to get the user of a camera. We would have to ask separately, therefore. So the student has to know already what to ask. It is like going to the doctors and having already to know which illness you have. So it is not usable as a kind of guide to guide you through all your learning processes for learning photography. But we shouldn't be too fast here. I anyway see a really big potential in artificial intelligence helping us to improve our photography to get even to a master level. But before I will tell you that, my friends, if you like this video, please give me a thumb up. You know, it helps me, it helps the algorithm, and it helps also other photographers to find this video better on YouTube. Thank you therefore. Well, now we know that we have to be careful with using artificial intelligence because it outputs us just the average of all the input it got. But is it anyway possible to use it for getting to a master level in photography? Let's ask Chat GPT. Tell me how I can bring my photography to a master level. Now, when I ask like that, the suggestions I get are not all too different from those I get already before. They are just differently worded. Master your camera. This is more a tip I would give if the question would be how I could get to an advanced level. But we are talking about master level here. Then, study advanced composition. Here it just suggests engaging with using color lines and shapes. I mean, that's not totally wrong or so. We need to engage with things like that. And you also need that all to get to a master level as well. But this is more an advice I would give more to a beginner, not to someone who is going to enter a master level. Maybe I would not give that advice to a totally new beginner, but after some weeks of practice or so, and that's what a beginner should engage with. And also most of the other tips are just things that help you as a beginner or as a slightly advanced to get a better advanced actually, not a master. The most important things are missing here for me. Engaging with compositional architecture, engaging with storytelling, how to bring photography to art, or how to master light, how to photograph the soul of the subject actually. Things like that, not just use a leading line to get better photos. This is advanced level, not master level. And don't get me wrong here, also masters use leading lines of course, but they understand much more about composition and don't focus just on this single component only. A master looks more on the entire architecture of an image so that everything really works together and supports the narrative of the image so that the image says something. I also tried it with asking for more detailed tips about getting a master in photography, but also that didn't lead really to reasonable results. And what I'm even totally missing here in all the trials I did, Chat GPT doesn't act like a good teacher. Now, what makes a good teacher? A good teacher tries to find out on which level his students are. Don't get me wrong here, I don't think that I'm the best teacher in the world or so, but what I do is, when a photographer visits me on a one-to-one workshop for instance, the very first thing I do is I try to find out on which level he is. Where are his strengths? What does he struggle with? How can I help him actually? And it doesn't work in a different way, to be honest. One day I'm having a totally beginner here on a workshop, and then one day I have a 20 years experienced photographer here who is joining me. And I think the latter one wouldn't be happy if I would explain him how an ND filter works or so. So it is really that important to consider the level of the student. And that's simply not given with an AI like Chat GPT. Chat GPT is a conversational model. It doesn't understand actually what it suggests. There is no man inside or so who thinks if it makes sense what he suggests. It doesn't work like our brain or so. It's just an algorithm. But what I think is, artificial intelligence is in its children's shoes at the moment. It will definitely get better, but in many ways sure also when it got better. It will not replace YouTube channels like this here or experienced photographers who give workshops. And also because there is one more aspect we should consider, especially for learning photography. An AI focused just on analytical problems, but photography is much more than that. I would say just 1 or maybe 2% is analytical. How to use a camera, which settings to use, and so on. But the majority of photography is all about creativity. An AI can't be creative. Also, the teaching process should be creative in photography. It is not just all about teaching analytical stuff. YouTube videos are really good here, I have to say. We don't focus on the learning process only. It is a kind of entertainment, inspiration even, especially outdoor vlogs. And an AI can't do all that. Therefore, it would be necessary really to think analytically, but also creatively. Because teaching creativity is not all about repeating everything that is already there. It is also all about looking at things from totally different perspectives and even to create something new from time to time. I made already a video about creativity where I go a bit more in detail here, and I will link it up here for you. However, AI will definitely not replace YouTube videos and workshops, so I'm sorry here, no robots out in the field. What we call an AI is actually just a better algorithm of translating a user question into a query to output the average of all the input it got. But where I definitely see potential is using it not as a guide for learning anything complex, but for answering more short and simple questions. Let's say you are a photography beginner and you watch one of my outdoor videos where I say that I'm using a circular polarizer, for instance. As a beginner, you would have no idea what the polarizer is. In the past, when we didn't know a word, we searched after that on Google. And in many cases, Google gives already the explanation on the very top. In my experience, this works in many cases too, but not always. And I think an AI like Chat GPT offers even better results, overall results here, for smaller questions like that. So using it as a kind of translator for unknown words is a clear strength, I would say. But anyway, I'm convinced that AIs will get much better over the next 6, 7, 8 years or so. Due to the architecture, they will not get good enough to replace us or so, but I think they could anyway be an interesting tool to get first overall idea about a topic we have never engaged before, or to get this kind of translator who explains us unknown words. But anyway, I think we should keep our eyes open here, because generally I'm convinced that it is good to use different learning methods. And this is also one of the reasons, by the way, why I have different video formats here on my channel. I started with landscape photography tutorial vlogs, where I give a lot of tips out in the field, and I think that's a good way of learning photography. There are lots of useful tips included in every video, integrated in an outdoor photography adventure. So I think that's good too, but I found out that they don't allow me to go all too much into depth for specific topics. Therefore, it is better to make tutorial videos here in my office where I go much more in detail. And this is also a good learning method too, but the thing is, both combined together, tutorial vlogs and office tutorials, build a much better quality than I would just do one of them. I think in some years maybe an AI like Chat GPT, for instance, could be an additional part of our learning strategy. So it's definitely interesting what time will bring here. However, I'm anyway quite impressed by Chat GPT already today, I have to say. It is good to get an overview of a totally new topic and a quick explanation of unknown words. The only thing I would prefer is if it would suggest more about the most important things in photography. And I made already a video about that, and I will link it here for you. This is even the first tutorial video on my channel. Really funny to watch, but the content is quite useful, I have to say. My friends, I hope you liked this video. If yes, share it with your friends, and don't forget to tune in next week. There will come a fantastic video as well. And thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.